to open the doors of Jehovah's house. Once a 3:15 evidently the words where the Ark of God was applied to the tabernacle area and are not to be understood as signifying that Samuel slept in the most holy. As a non-priestly Kohathite Levite he was not entitled to see the Ark or any of the other sacred furnishings inside the sanctuary. New 4:17-20 The only part of the house of Jehovah to which Samuel had access was the tabernacle courtyard. Therefore, he must have opened the doors leading into the courtyard, and it must have been there that he slept. During the period that the tabernacle was permanently located at Shiloh, various structures were likely erected, and one of these could have served as Samuel's sleeping place. One night, after having retired, Samuel heard a voice calling him by name. Imagining the speaker to be High Priest Eli, he ran to see him. After this occurred 3 times, Eli discerned that Jehovah was calling Samuel and Eli instructed him accordingly. Jehovah then made known to Samuel his judgment against Eli's house. Fearful, Samuel did not volunteer any information concerning the word of Jehovah until requested to do so by Eli. Thus began Samuel's prophetic work, and all Israel eventually became aware that he was indeed Jehovah's prophet. Once a 3:2-21 leads Israel in true worship. Over 20 years later, at Samuel's exhortation, the Israelites abandoned idolatrous worship and began serving Jehovah alone. Subsequently, Samuel had the Israelites assemble at Mizpah. Taking advantage of the situation, the Philistines invaded. Becoming fearful, the sons of Israel requested that Samuel call to Jehovah for aid. He did so and also offered up a sucking lamb in sacrifice. Once a 7:2-9 Of course, as a non-priestly Kohathite Levite, Samuel was not authorized to officiate at the sanctuary altar. New 18:2, 3, 6, 7, and there is no record that he ever did so. However, as Jehovah's representative and prophet, he could sacrifice at other places in compliance with divine direction, as did Gideon Jg 6:25-28 and Elijah. 1 Kai 18:36-38 Jehovah answered Samuel's prayer, throwing the Philistines into confusion and thereby enabling the Israelites to gain a decisive victory. To commemorate this, Samuel set up a stone between Mizpah and Jeshanah and called it Ebenezer, meaning stone of help. Once a 7:10-12 Doubtless from the spoils of this and other wars, Samuel set aside things as holy to maintain the tabernacle. 1 Ch 26:27-28 The days of Samuel brought additional reverses for the Philistines. 1 7:13-14 and proved to be a period marked by outstanding Passover celebrations. 2 Ch 35:18 Samuel also seems to have worked out some arrangement for the Levite gatekeepers, and his arrangement may have served as a basis for the organization put into operation by David. 1 Ch 9:22 From his home at Ramah in the mountainous region of Ephraim, Samuel annually made a circuit of Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, judging Israel at all these places. Once a 7:15-17 Never did he abuse his position. His record was without blame. Once a 12:2-5 But his sons, Joel and Otextoi acute miritra longo. Samuel 852 Samuel reviewed his own record, as well as Israel's past history, and showed that obedience to Jehovah by the king and the people was needed to maintain divine approval. To impress upon them the seriousness of having rejected Jehovah as king, Samuel prayed for an unseasonal thunderstorm. Jehovah's answering that petition motivated the people to acknowledge their serious transgression. 1 Sir 11, 14, 12, 25. On 2 occasions thereafter Samuel had to censure Saul for disobedience to divine direction. In the first instance, Samuel announced that Saul's kingship would not last, because he had presumptuously gone ahead in making a sacrifice instead of waiting as he had been commanded. 1 Sir 13. 10-14 Rejection by Jehovah of Saul himself as king was the second condemnatory message that Samuel delivered to Saul for disobediently pre-record of the beginning of kingship in Israel, emphasizing obedience to Jehovah written by Samuel, Nathan, and Gad. 1 Samuel covers the time from the birth of Samuel to the death of Israel's first king, Saul. Jehovah raises up Samuel as prophet in Israel. 1 7 17 Samuel is born as an answer to his mother Hannah's prayer. After he is weaned, he is presented for sanctuary service in fulfillment of Hannah's vow. Jehovah speaks to Samuel, pronouncing judgment against Eli's house, because his sons Hophni and Phinehas act wickedly, and Eli does not rebuke them. As Samuel grows up, he is recognized as Jehovah's prophet. Jehovah's word against Eli begins to be fulfilled. Philistines capture the ark and slay Eli's sons. Eli dies on hearing the news. Years later, Samuel urges the Israelites to abandon idolatry and serve Jehovah alone. Jehovah gives them victory over the Philistines. Saul becomes Israel's first king. 1. 15. 35 The Israelite elders approach aged Samuel, requesting a human king. Jehovah tells him to listen to their voice. Jehovah directs Samuel to anoint Saul, a Benjaminite, as king. Samuel presents Saul to an assembly of Israelites at Mizpah. Not everyone accepts him. Saul defeats the Ammonites. His kingship is reconfirmed at Gilgal. Samuel admonishes the people to remain obedient to Jehovah. Faced with Philistine aggression, Saul fails to obey Jehovah and wait for Samuel's arrival, offering sacrifices himself. Samuel tells him that because of this his kingdom will not last. Saul defeats the Amalekites, but he disobediently preserves alive King Agag and the best of the animals. Samuel tells Saul he is rejected by Jehovah as king, and that obedience is more important than sacrifice. David comes to prominence, and this angers Saul. 16. 1. 20. 42 Samuel anoints David, and Jehovah's spirit leaves Saul. David becomes a harpist for Saul to soothe him when disturbed. David kills the Philistine champion Goliath, and a deep friendship develops between David and Saul's son Jonathan. Placed over Saul's warriors, David gains repeated victories and is celebrated in song more than Saul. Saul becomes jealous. Twice Saul's attempts to kill David fail, as does his scheme to have David die at the hands of the Philistines while procuring the bride price for Saul's daughter Michal. Despite his promise to Jonathan, Saul for a third time tries to kill David, and David flees to Samuel at Ramah. Jonathan unsuccessfully tries to intercede for David with his father. He warns David, and he and David make a covenant. David's life as a fugitive. 21. 1. 27. 12 At Nob, high priest Ahimelech gives David food and Goliath's sword. David then flees to Gath, where he escapes harm by acting insane. He takes refuge in the cave of Adullam and then in the forest of Hereth. Saul has Ahimelech and everyone in Nob killed. Ahimelech's son Abithar survives and comes to David. David saves Keilah from Philistines, but afterward he leaves the city to avoid being surrendered to Saul. Neotextoi acute miritra longo. Samuel, books of 853 serving alive King Agag and the best of the Amalekite flock and herd. In response to Saul's plea, Samuel appeared with him before the older men of Israel and the people. After that Samuel commanded that Agag be brought to him, and then went hacking him to pieces before Jehovah in Gilgal. 1 Samuel 15. 10-33. Anoint David. When the two men parted, they had no further association. Samuel, however, went into mourning for Saul. But Jehovah God interrupted his mourning, commissioning him to go to Bethlehem to anoint one of the sons of Jesse as Israel's future king. To avoid any suspicion on Saul's part that might result in Samuel's death, Jehovah directed that Samuel take along a cow for sacrifice. Perhaps fearing that Samuel had come to reprove or punish some wrongdoing, the older men of Bethlehem trembled. But he assured them that his coming meant peace, and then arranged for Jesse and his sons to share in a sacrificial meal. Impressed by the appearance of Jesse's firstborn Eliab, Samuel reasoned that this son must surely be Jehovah's choice for the kingship. But neither Eliab nor any of the other 6 sons of Jesse present had been chosen by Jehovah. Therefore, at Samuel's insistence, the youngest son, David, was called from pasturing the sheep, and then at Jehovah's direction Samuel anointed David in the midst of his brothers. 1 Samuel 15. 34. 16. 13. Later, after King Saul had made several attempts on his life, David fled to Samuel at Ramah. The two men then went to Naioth, and David remained there until Saul personally came to look for him. 1 Samuel 19. 18. 20. 1 During the time David was still under restriction because of Saul, Samuel died. And all Israel proceeded to collect together and bewail him and bury him at his house in Ramah. 1 Samuel 25. 1. Thus Samuel died as an approved servant of Jehovah God after a lifetime of faithful service. PS 99. 6. Jah 15. 1. Heb 11. 32. He had demonstrated persistence in fulfilling his commission. 1 to 16. 6. 11. Devotion to true worship. 1 to 7. 3-6. Honesty in his dealings. 1 to 12. 3. Encourage and firmness in announcing and upholding Jehovah's judgments and decisions. 1 to 10. 24. 13. 13. 15. 32, 33. Regarding the account of Saul's request for the spirit medium at Endor to bring up Samuel for him, see Saul number 1. Samuel, books of 2 books of the Hebrew scriptures that apparently were not divided in the original Hebrew canon. Indicative of this is a note in the Masorah showing that words in 1 Samuel, chapter 28, one of the concluding chapters of 1 Samuel, were in the middle of the book. Writers and time covered. Ancient Jewish tradition credits Samuel with the writership of the first part of the book, and Nathan and Gad with the remaining portion. That these 3 prophets did write is confirmed at 1 Chronicles 29. 29. The book itself reports, Samuel spoke to the people about the rightful due of the kingship and wrote it in a book and deposited it before Jehovah. 1 to 10. 25. However, on the basis of 1 Samuel 27. 6, where there is reference to the kings of Judah, numerous scholars place the final compiling of the books of Samuel sometime after the 10-tribe kingdom of Israel came into existence. If the expression the kings of Judah denotes only Judean kings of the 2-tribe kingdom, this would show that the writings of Samuel, Nathan, and Gad must have been put into final form by someone else. On the other hand, if the kings of Judah simply means kings from the tribe of Judah, these words could have been recorded by Nathan, since he lived under the rulership of 2 Judean kings, David and Solomon. 1 Chiron 32-34. 2